Thrilled that you're all able to join us. I think we're probably about ready to get started, just so that we can have as much time as possible for the presentations and your questions. So let me get started. Perhaps a couple more people will start joining in. My name is Brian Imus. I'm the Executive Director with the Illinois Green Alliance, and I have the pleasure of being your moderator today for our program titled Trailblazing Net Zero Buildings. We're going to look at 3 different case studies here in Illinois with 3 different approaches to considering the best design practices and technologies to help advance high performance buildings. For those that aren't familiar with Illinois Green Alliance, we're a membership driven nonprofit that promotes green buildings and sustainable communities for all. Our members, they are building professionals who are really passionate about sustainability and believe that green infrastructure is key to improving the quality of life for everybody in Illinois. Earlier this year, we launched, just waiting for the slide to advance and make sure that it can advance. Earlier this year, we launched a new strategic 5-year strategic plan that is intended to lay the foundation for mainstreaming net zero buildings in Illinois. To do so, and to really make that vision a reality of net zero buildings everywhere in Illinois, we need to double down on professional education focused on the best practices with net zero. We need to demonstrate that these strategies and the technology for net zero are viable in any building type and in any neighborhood. And we need to develop policy that removes barriers and incentives and will actually incentivize adoption. There's much more on our website, illinoisgreenalliance.org, where you can learn about the programs, the projects, the education, the policy and advocacy that we're doing to help advance this strategic plan. I'm also very excited about AIA Illinois' partnership in all of this work, and thrilled that you've joined us for today's panel on high performance buildings, highlighting 3 different approaches to net zero. Let me introduce each of our 3 speakers briefly, and then I'll turn it over to them so that they can walk through the different case studies, and then we'll open it up to your questions. Joining us first today is Jennifer Bentoncourt. She's a project manager and corporate sustainability leader at Dewberry with more than 18 years of experience. She's got a broad skill set focusing on sustainability, ranging from programming and design work to project management and construction administration. She earned her degree in architecture from the University of Arizona and is a registered architect in Colorado, Illinois, and Michigan. And she's also a registered interior designer here in Illinois. She's got a Green Globes. She's a Green Globes professional, a LEED accredited professional with a specialization in building design and construction. She's also a member of the American Institute of Architects, Green Building Initiative, National Council of Architectural Registration Boards, and the U.S. Green Building Council. After that, Ron Richardson will be sharing his case study. He leads FGM's pre-K through 12 education practice. He's been in the architectural field for nearly a quarter of a century, specializing in educational facility planning and design that includes a broad base of experience in the educational market for new schools, major additions, and major renovations. In that work, he's worked with over 36 local, state, and international school organizations, and he's a member of the Illinois Association of School Business Officials. And then finally, Chris Dillion will be sharing his case study. He is the president of Campbell Coyle, where he leads sustainable development and district scale revitalization efforts, producing highly transformative real estate projects. His past work includes the development of over 2.5 million square feet of retail, residential, and mixed-use real estate. Chris is a leader in green building, having developed, lectured, and advocated on the sustainability movement. He's a past appointee to the State of Illinois LEED Task Force, where he advanced policy solutions aimed at creating funding mechanisms to foster sustainability initiatives in public schools. He's also a former board chair and leader with Illinois Green Alliance. Chris holds a Bachelor's of Science in Entrepreneurship from the College of Business at the University of Illinois, where he was also an environmental fellow, and he is a past delegate to the Prince of Wales Business and Environment Program at the University of Cambridge. So 3 distinguished presenters. I'm now going to turn it over to our first presenter, Jennifer Betancourt. Jennifer.
Thank you, Brian. Again, my name is Jenny Betancourt. One more thing to add is that I recently passed my WELL AP, so I'm now a WELL AP as well. I'm very passionate about wellness and sustainability. As you mentioned, I'm an architect with Dewberry, and today I'll be presenting to you the Countryside Municipal Complex project. Go ahead. Thanks. So just a bit here about Dewberry. We are a family-owned firm. We have over 2,000 employees countrywide and over 50 locations. So in Illinois, we have Elmhurst, which is where I'm sitting, and then also downtown Peoria. One aspect of this project I want to emphasize is that it is a combined facility. So this is both a city hall and a police headquarters facility, which means that it operates 24/7. So this is very significant when you think about and analyze from a net zero energy perspective, that the facility is operating and therefore the energy use intensity is 24/7. The client is the city of Countryside and then also the police department. Our services we provided were architecture, interior design, furniture design, MEP structural technology and security engineering, and lead consulting. Next. Next slide. I don't know if it's having issues advancing, Brian.
Yeah, it's a little slow. See if it advances now. Sorry about that. Give me one more, so maybe it just needs a second to catch up. There we go.
There we go. So I always like to see the locations where projects are located. So here on the left, the Chicago area, our office is in downtown Elmhurst there in the berry color. And then the green circle is the city of Countryside. And then zooming in on your right, the existing facility was in the upper right-hand corner there along historic Route 66, as is the new site at the bottom of your screen. So this was important to the client that they were still along Route 66 and in order to spur economic development along this corridor. So zooming in, next, next slide. It is an L-shaped site at the corner of Brainerd Avenue and Joliet Road, which is Route 66. So this did present some challenges. But overall, the north-south bar of the building that you're seeing, that is the city hall, and then the east-west is the police department and the secure portion of the site. The site has multiple entries and exits, both public parking and then the secure staff and police parking. It's very welcoming at this prominent corner, and then we used an elevated approach of the first floor to provide protection from vehicular assaults. Next. This is a story of a project that went from LEED to net zero energy as a project goal. So how did this come about? We did not start the project out as a net zero energy project from the beginning. The RFQ and the interview stage, it was the city's goal that the project would achieve LEED version 4 silver. So as we started our design process, and our approach to LEED was to maximize the credit that has the most points, which is the optimized energy performance credit, which you can get up to 18 points. So we incorporated passive design strategies. And while we were performing our energy modeling with our engineering team, we realized that we were close, that net zero energy was not out of reach. At the same time, we became aware of and familiarized ourselves with the Illinois Clean Energy Communities Foundation grant for net zero energy building projects. We took this idea to the city. At that time, it was a $1 million grant. It is now a $2 million grant. But for this project, it was one. And, you know, we now note at this, another very important aspect of this is that we were already towards the end of the design development phase of the project at this point. So, but the city said, let's go for it. Let's go for it. So the benefits, I'm still on the other slide. The benefits to this owner is that it helps them achieve their non-monetary sustainable return on investment goals. And why do I say non-monetary? It's because this municipality does not pay for power. So the benefits to them are non-monetary. It helps them spur an economic development along Joliet Road. They wanted to be the first municipality in the state of Illinois to have a net zero energy design facility, and they wanted to lead by example. They wanted to be leaders in their community, in the Chicago area, and at the state level. So here, what did we do at this point? We had already gone through iterations of designs. The city was set on the look of the building, which is a prairie style modern design. So we went back with a super critical eye, and we focused on what we could do passively, even more than what we had already done to minimize energy loss in the building. So focusing on the airtight building design, increasing insulation values, but only to a point, because in our energy modeling, it showed us diminishing returns on the value of the thickness of the insulation. And then also looking at reducing solar heat gain by utilizing large overhangs to shade the fenestration, and then a ceramic frit pattern on the glazing to block 50% of the direct solar heat gain. The next three strategies were to reduce the energy loads. So these are the active design strategies. So the mechanical system is a geothermal ground loop system in conjunction with rooftop units, heat pumps, and VAV boxes. On the power loading side, we utilized all LED lighting. Instead, we were able to eliminate transformers by not bringing in 480, we brought in 208. And then we had receptacle controls, daylighting controls, and then that last piece is renewable energy on site for energy production in order to bring us to net zero. On the next slide, you'll see a rendering. And so what did not help us was the complexities of the ins and outs of this design. As I mentioned, the client was already set on the look, and they loved the look of the building, but they did not want to compromise that, but they also wanted the net zero. So this is not easy to construct, and it's not easy to make a tight envelope with this form. So our solution was to require 4 full-scale mock-ups of the main and the most critical exterior wall sections. The mock-ups, they're 4-sided so that contractors could practice and learn how to construct the complexities of the detailing. And then they did the blower tests on these 4 mock-ups to ensure that the construction was built to the requirements of the air infiltration rates per the design. So here's just some photos of those full-scale mock-ups under construction. And then in the left image here, you can see in the secure police parking lot under the pavement, we have 32 450-foot deep geothermal loops. And then on the right is a section of one of the loops. Next. Carport structures serve as both additional surface area for photovoltaic panels, and they provide shade and shelter for the police vehicles And then on the right is just an image of the PVs that are on almost all the roof. Here, a drone photo, so you can see all the PVs and the carports and all the roofs. There were 638. There are photovoltaic panels, and again, they provide both weather protection for the squad cars as well as additional square footage there for all the panels. Green education was integrated into the site and the building. This contributed not only to a LEED innovation credit, but also was part of one of the requirements of the additional certification. You're looking at an elevation of the lobby where we integrated interactive displays and live monitors that shows the building performance. There's information on the website. They do tours, and throughout the building, there's educational signage. On the right there, you can see the swivel, where the outside is a question, and then children or adults can swivel it and then see the answer underneath. Those little swivel panels. Go ahead. So the green education is very child friendly. For example, I don't know why it's blank. There you go. For example, how deep do the geothermal pipes go? And then you swivel it and it says 450 deep. That's the length of 10 school buses. So, again, these are throughout the lobby. And then like in the upper right-hand corner, you can see that there's also this education incorporated throughout the site, talking about how there's no permanent irrigation and all the water savings. So as I mentioned, originally it was a LEED silver. We achieved LEED gold. In the middle there, we helped the city to apply for and get the Illinois Clean Energy Community Foundation's Net Zero Energy Building Program grant. As part of that grant, they required another certification from a list that they have, and we chose the International Living Futures Institute Zero Energy certification. So ultimately, you can go to the next slide. Ultimately, this project honors not only the prairie style modern aesthetic that the city fell in love with, but also it is an ultra energy efficient design that stands as an example to other cities, to police departments and municipalities in Illinois and in the Midwest of what is possible, even in the extremes of our weather and our climate in the Midwest. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Jennifer. And now we're gonna switch to have Ron Richardson share his project, and it's going to take me a moment to open up his slides.
Yeah.
I think we're ready.
All right. Thanks, Brian. So again, my name is Ron Richardson, and I am a vice president with FGM Architects. And also in the room with me here on the Q&A section is Troy Kerr. He was our project manager for this particular project. So real quickly, an overview of what I want to cover. I want to talk about the client interest in net zero energy and how we got to where we are today. Then I want to share some performance details and some project background with everyone. And then touch on the why did we choose the FIAS rating system. I'm going to close with a few comments on that. So what's the motivation for net zero energy? Well, School District 26 has always been looking for sustainable and environmentally friendly solutions for their facilities. The listed here are a few of their accomplishments over the last few years. District 26 really follows the U.S. Department of Education's Green Ribbon Schools program and won a Green Ribbon Schools award for one of their projects back in 2018. These are the three pillars for the Green Ribbon Schools program, and clearly achieving net zero energy under pillar one, which is to reduce environmental impact and long-term costs, is really where the net zero energy effort lives. And so overall, to achieve net zero energy production, that topic has been discussed for probably 5 to 8 years at District 26. But because of the improved performance of solar panels from that initial discussion, as well as the ICECF grant that they received, that really put them over the top to go for the net zero energy benchmark. So a little bit of background on the district. Unlike the previous project, this was a full retrofit of an existing building. This was not new construction. The building here located in the red circle is the school in Mount Prospect. It's about 8 miles north of O'Hare. It was around 29,000 square feet in overall size. This building had been in service for many years, but it had been leased, and the school district was experiencing enrollment growth. So they needed to bring this building back online, and that's what triggered the project. The diagram on the right really shows the two buildings that were part of this project. Building 1 off in the distance is a maintenance building, and really we landed solar panels on the roof there to support building 2, but there was no remodeling at that building. And building 2 in the foreground is where we did the deep energy retrofit work. This is a photograph of the school from the east side of the school. This is the east elevation of the building. Originally built back in 1966. It was a 4-inch brick veneer over CMU backup, steel bar joist, roof structure. Original window systems, those are transite panels above and below the glazing. So it was really a mess and really a time capsule with all of its original equipment and infrastructure. This is a photograph of the south elevation showing the facility as it's constructed with the new exterior wall system. And I wanted to stress the fact that there's no new construction. This is all remodeling. Next. So this is an isometric showing sort of the building configurations. The blue shaded areas are the new pre-K and K classrooms. Next. So building performance. I'm going to give you more specifics about how the building performed because it was really a dramatic transformation from before to after. The baseline EUI for this facility was 75, and that was for the baseline HVAC system, which was a hot water system. The proposed EUI is 24, and the building really just came online in August. So we're still measuring and assessing and really haven't started the clock yet with the 12-month ICECF grant cycle. But the proposed EUI target is 24. Baseline carbon footprint, 174 metric tons. The proposed carbon footprint with this system is a negative 24. And that is because we had a safety factor designed into our solar panel array. So it became a negative number as far as carbon footprint. 114% reduction in that carbon. And then estimated annual savings for this facility, and this is relative to baseline systems. It's not, and that's around $21,000 a year. But in reality, from this new system to the previous system is well over $30,000 a year. So again, it was a dramatic savings. Again, more performance details. The building is supported by a solar array, which gives us about 239 megawatt hours of annual production. This is an all VRF heating and cooling system with DOAS, as opposed to the previous example, which was, I believe, it looked like it was 100% geothermal, Jennifer? Yeah, 100% geothermal. So this is a very different system. No natural gas to this particular building. We designed it for an R65 roof insulation assembly and an R24, which was a dramatic improvement. And around the facility, again, to hit our modeling targets, we went with replaced the single pane aluminum window system with a new doubly thermally broken curtain wall framing system with triple pane dual low E insulated glazing. So very high performance systems which leads me to the next slide. I mean, some of the challenges for this facility were these new technologies new to the PK-12 construction market. I mean, they may be more common in other markets, but it was a challenge to find and specify these materials and to find trades that could work with these. The FIAS group required certification training. That was another step that we had to go through with this project. Weather and scheduling were, which is actually related to the next bullet point, which was the COVID-19 outbreak. But weather and scheduling were a real challenge. And so anyone who wants to pursue this at this high level should bear that in mind. This probably took another 6 to 8 months of construction time, which pushed us into the winter months. And so this was a very common sight, not the abominable snowman, but the people outside the building working on the envelope throughout the winter. And it was a brutal winter last year too. Occupant behavior, I'm not sure what Jennifer has run into, but that's an ongoing discussion. And we've had initial discussions with teachers needing to modify behaviors in order to hit these production targets. And then finally, building performance. As I said, the building just came online, and so it has to be measured over the next year. And so that's sort of a to be determined as far as final and building performance. Next slide. And so again, dovetailing into the building performance, we are part of the Illinois Clean Energy Community Foundation's Net Zero Energy Program. And I would say from an architectural and engineering standpoint, the biggest risk to us was that the grant approval process ran parallel to our design process. So if at any point we were not awarded the grant, it was a redesign of this facility. So that was a significant risk that everybody understood going into it. And again, I think if all the architects on the call can appreciate that. But the reward, again, we were under the $2 million, up to $2 million grant cycle. And so that's what we're targeting. And again, we're waiting on our final third installment of the payments, and that's based on building performance. Next slide. And finally, you know, we had the choice of Living Building Challenge or the FIAS plus Source Zero system, and we chose the FIAS system. But it was really, for us, it was 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. There was, and I think what put it over the top was that it was a local organization in Chicago. But really the challenge there was that it's designed for single family, multifamily, and commercial construction. And clearly we're in institutional school facilities. So syncing up our scheduling and having those discussions and the uses and all of the complexities of a school plus a district office had to be reconciled with the FIAS group. And we made it through and we're successful, but that was a challenge for us. So that's it, Brian.
All right. Thank you very much, Ron. And now I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Chris Dillion to share our third and final case study. And then just as Chris is about to start and turn off his mute, just a reminder to everybody to include your questions in the Q&A function.
Great, thank you, Brian. Chris Dillion, president of Campbell Coyle. I'm not an architect, I'm a real estate developer. And I saw one question that popped up in the Q&A. So we can talk a little bit about kind of the private sector motive. A little bit about my firm. We, I think very intentionally focus on sustainable projects, revitalization projects. We're also very active in multifamily housing, mixed use, and transit connected development, primarily in the Chicago area. And then more recently, we've also done a series of adaptive reuse projects, again, sort of thinking about reuse of existing buildings through the sustainability lens. One of the big areas that we also do work is in higher education. And it's a kind of a business model that we've been perfecting over the last 15 years or so. So as a private sector developer, most of the time you will probably hear about developers working in the student housing space, but we actually focus on academic, institutional, and office facilities, as well as mixed use facilities in concert with higher education. And so we do those both on our balance sheet on occasion, as well off balance sheet, which means they're typically funded with bonds of some type. And so the project that I'll reference today is at the University of Illinois. It's called the Campus Instructional Facility. We recently achieved final completion. It's a 124,000 square foot instructional facility. So it's all classrooms, 23 classrooms in total, as well as a significant amount of collaboration space. There's one office in the building for a facility manager. So there's literally one full-time equivalent job in the building. So on average, in any given moment during the day, you have approximately 2,500 students. This project is effectively anchored by the Granger College of Engineering at Illinois. And in any given day, you probably have around 35,000 students kind of in and out of this building. So it's really designed and intended to be a workhorse facility for the campus. Introduce the team a little bit. So my partner on this was Vermilion Development, where I actually worked for about a decade up until 2016, and we've continued to do our collaborations in the higher ed space. And then just kind of highlighting key members of the design and construction team. Our architect was Skidmore, Owens Merrill. DBHMS was our MEP, as well as our consultant on commissioning. And then Pepper Construction was our general contractor. I want to talk a little bit about some of the constraints. This might start to point towards some of the questions that I'm sure you have. Some of the constraints that we encountered, especially looking at it more through the developer lens, but I think it also very much aligned with some of the challenges on the design side. One is timing. We found that while we wanted to do the right thing and really push a sustainability agenda, one of our biggest challenges was that we had to move quickly through the design process. And so fortunately for us, we were met with a lot of collaboration from the university and other stakeholders as we came up with big ideas and tried to push our sustainability agenda. I think the other big constraint that we encountered was, I kind of framed it as managing two expectations. The state required LEED Silver as sort of the baseline. The university kind of going into the project sort of had aspirations that we would achieve LEED Gold. When we submitted the RFP response for this project, our team sort of committed to aspirations of like saying, yeah, absolutely, we should be able to meet LEED Gold, but we'd like to be LEED Platinum and maybe net zero ready. And we had some kind of broader aspirations. I think the challenge is once you get selected and then reality sets in and you have to design the building and deliver the building on a very tight timeline and budget, a lot of our team members sort of defaulted to, well, it's LEED Silver, right? And so I think one of our challenges as developer was sort of keeping the focus on high performance. And then the last piece, I think it's very much correlated. I call it sustainability sabotage. It's just sometimes we find key participants on a team sort of creating barriers or challenges where they shouldn't otherwise exist. Maybe because it looks like work, maybe because they're not invested or aligned from a values perspective. So I view our role as developer as trying to identify where those issues might exist and trying to address them head on. As I mentioned earlier, in our RFP response, we had aspirations of pushing towards LEED Platinum and net zero ready. And it was really sort of a series of interesting opportunities that emerged that allowed us to push towards net zero. The first was we knew that the university had made certain assumptions on the first cost to connect to the campus utility infrastructure, chilled water and steam. And we basically said, hey, we assume that there's sort of a baseline assumption that went into your budgets for those connection costs. And we assume that that was probably a LEED Silver building as required by the state. And we asked if we could recapture any savings that we were able to realize by delivering a more sustainable project. And they agreed to that. And that sort of opened the door to a number of new opportunities. And so that saved us about $900,000 that we were able to then reinvest back into our sustainability agenda. The other thing that was sort of sitting out there, as Brian mentioned earlier, I'm a proud alumnus of the University of Illinois. And as an undergraduate, I was involved with the sustainability movement on campus. And we created this fund on campus back when in my undergraduate days to fund greener energy sources. And so I knew that there was this fund out there, and it had been building a lot of money over time. Interestingly enough, it's now one of the largest green funds on any campus in the United States. And so I think one of the other lessons learned here was like, we knew where there were some resources available. So we went to the Student Sustainability Committee and asked for funding for a specific project, which I'll highlight in a moment. And they committed $375,000 to the project. None of that even really highlights the fact that we had at least forecasted significant operational savings, utility savings throughout the project's life, about 120,000 when we calculated it early on in the process. And so as we kicked off this project in 2018, we did a lot of visioning, but as I mentioned earlier, we were under a really tight timeline. So we were doing this very quickly, and that was one of our real challenges. Our goals were to align with the university's climate action plan. They envisioned being carbon neutral by 2050. Early on, we made a conscious decision that we wanted to eliminate any carbon sources from the building, and we actually tried to disconnect completely from the campus infrastructure, utility infrastructure, but the campus did not agree to that. They do have the Abbott power plant, which is a coal and natural gas power plant on campus. And so that's one of the reasons we went with LEED Zero. ILFI would not certify the project as net zero because there is a carbon-based source within the campus network. Our vision was to commit to a high performance, low entropy design. Keep it simple. This building is sort of anchored by the College of Engineering on campus, and we wanted to do something that really highlighted their presence in the building and the significance of that college to the state and certainly on that campus. So our goal was to make engineering visible. And during our visioning process, we became aware of this project that a faculty member on campus had been doing with his students, exploring a district heat pump concept on the Bardeen Quad, which is kind of the main engineering quad at the university. So much like the earlier presentation, geothermal ends up playing a big role in our ability to sort of get to net zero. So this is a shot from the building as completed today. This is the Bardeen Quad. And I'll say, you know, again, I think really want to emphasize, I think the nature of the anchor tenant here being the Granger College of Business really inspired us. It's sort of the crown jewel of the state of Illinois in terms of higher education. You know, we were really inspired by some of the really cutting edge technology and research that was coming out of the institution. And we also sought to put a lot of that on display in the building. So one of the big decisions, this is from our recent dedication ceremony, but you'll see all the panels on the ceiling. So early on, we made the decision to do a radiant system, really credit DBHMS with kind of pushing us in this direction. It was it definitely required, you know, a little bit of investment on the front end, but ultimately I think the usability of the building, the user experience has really been enhanced by this system. And it also, I don't have a technical background, but it seems like the radiant system certainly communicates and works well with the geothermal system. And so that really sort of paved the way for the path to net zero. So as I mentioned earlier, this was one of the big asks that we made. We went to the university and we said, okay, we can take this $900,000 and we can invest it in something. We decided we wanted to do the geothermal heat exchange system. So we did 40 wells, also at 450 feet deep. And this realized about a 65% energy reduction for the building. So it was a big ask to basically turn one of the most prominent quads at the University of Illinois into a geothermal heat exchange system. One of the other cool features of this is that it's expandable. We took up about maybe 40% of the quad, but as the university renovates and retrofits other buildings, they can connect other buildings to the system. So part of what we wanted to do is provide them with a framework and a pathway to maybe someday the Granger College of Engineering can be net zero. And then beyond that, provide them with a path to actually achieve their climate action plan goals. We wanted to kind of, as a private sector player, help facilitate that and show them some creative strategies on doing that. The other component to this is offsite solar. So the University of Illinois, interestingly enough, is now one of the largest higher education players in offsite solar. So the university does have buildings where they put solar, or they have put solar on the roof. They've made sort of a policy decision that they prefer to do these offsite kind of more community solar installations. They have 2 different solar arrays now. And so we were basically able to get the university to commit that 100% of the remaining energy demand for our building will be provided from the campus solar network. And so once again, another sort of strategy on how they can scale this over time. So this is the finished product. We're really thrilled with the new facility. The students love it, which is fantastic. As I mentioned, I think the user experience has been really fantastic as well. You know, in sort of closing, one of the big things that I think we were excited about was really sort of challenging our team to think big picture and to push aggressively towards our sustainability vision. We outperformed our own expectations, and really I have to credit the university. Every time we had a big ask, they said yes. And it wasn't always an immediate yes, but it was like, let's roll up our sleeves and let's figure this out. And so we had a great rapport and great partnership with the institution, and I think that's what really pushed it sort of aggressively in the direction that it went towards. We're proud of the fact that we're one of the top 2 most sustainable projects that SOM's developed or designed. I think that kind of blew us away when we learned that. So it's a really a credit to the team as well. Right now we are in the process of finalizing our commissioning. We are monitoring energy consumption. One of the challenges with COVID is that obviously the university's protocols right now for fresh air and things of that sort are significantly higher. So that's one thing we're trying to navigate right now with USGBC is, you know, there's clearly going to be higher energy demand based on some of the COVID protocols. So how that factors in, we're still working through. We're projected to achieve LEED Platinum on the project and in the final stages of our certification there. And then once we wrap up our initial certification, we are currently registered for LEED Zero Energy, and we will go through the energy monitoring process for that, the certification process. So hopefully in the next couple of years, we'll be able to wrap all of that up, and that's kind of our timeline. I'll just kind of close with a few differentiators. I think we had incredible alignment as a team. among the design team, the developer, and ultimately with the university. It really felt like we were all working in the same direction and trying to push the same agenda. I think, we as an organization approach projects a little bit differently than perhaps some of the other developers that are out there. I mean, this was really a labor of love for us. Obviously, it's my alma mater, so I wanted to really push the sustainability agenda here. And lastly, as I mentioned earlier, we are incredibly motivated by the university and in particular the Granger College of Business. Their motto at the time, doing the impossible every day, sort of seemed like it was the kind of thing that we kept coming back to, because every time we tried to push, we were met with a great deal of support and collaboration, and that made all the difference. Brian?
Thank you, Chris, and thank you, Jennifer and Ron as well, for sharing your case studies. We need to figure out how to scale everything that you're doing so that every building is net zero. And so again, thank you for sharing. To that end, I think the first question that we have in the Q&A function there really gets at that. How do we go about fostering more clients to do this? And in particular, John was asking, how do you convince them that this is a good investment even without grant funds?
Yep, I can go first.
Sure.
Okay. So, again, we've been tracking this notion of net zero energy for years with the district, and the grant, and again, technologies sort of put us over the top. But they are, in fact, I believe, convinced that it is a good investment, and we are looking at rolling this out in 3 of their other buildings right now. And I, the direction right now is to be, to coin Chris's term, net zero ready, because we believe there's going to be more solar incentives on the horizon, at least on the educational side. And so their vision for the district is to take it in a direction to be ready to receive that and get there. And we believe they can. I mean, we know it's within reach, but what are they willing to do to get there? Because, there's going to be a long-term benefit for them.
Jennifer, Chris, just thoughts on
I would add, I mean, I don't think that it's any surprise that the 3 projects that are highlighted here are more institutional in nature. But I will say, as a private sector developer, we analyzed all of the investments that we were making that were above and beyond what we would have done anyways, and everything makes business sense. And so I think part of this is also about looking at things through a different lens. The University of Illinois, as an example, has had a methodology on how they price their utility infrastructure connections. And we simply saw a different way of doing things and an opportunity to recapture first costs. And that sort of pushed us on this trajectory that was kind of remarkable. And so I think part of the challenge is always sort of unearthing where those opportunities exist. But certainly it helps, at least for now, with these institutional players. They have the long view, and they have certainly have a financial incentive in aligning. And I think that's a good place to start. We're interested in continuing to sort of tease out how the private sector can play a role in that as well. And I still think there's work to be done there, but it makes financial sense. There is a pathway there under the right construct.
Jennifer, I don't know if you have any thoughts there.
Well, I mean, it's a good question, because certainly in the private sector, these grants, they don't apply. You can't go for them in the private sector. But Ron did share some information on money talks, right? And so the energy savings, you can calculate the energy savings that these projects can provide year over year. so that return on investment is there and we can show that. Of course, it helps to have clients that they want to do it just because it's the right thing to do. They have their own internal goals. We love those clients and aligning with them and celebrating them. And you know, like I said, the city of Countryside, they were looking at the non-monetary benefits. So there's those as well. So looking at all aspects of it, you know, from the social and the economic and the environmental aspects. I think we all have to look at this holistically.
Well, now, I wonder with those non-monetary benefits, if that isn't a way to just scale this more. And so I don't know if any of you could speak a little bit more about how your clients are leveraging what the building is doing and the role the building plays in the community, just to educate their constituents, educate the public, to drive interest and to drive the market.
Well, yeah, Jennifer touched on this, the learning component. We have actually, they haven't been finished yet, which is why I didn't show them, but we have interactive student displays explaining how the building works and systems in the building. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. The district has always fused sustainable practices with their education, and it's part of the curriculum. And so this is gonna put that in hyperdrive, and the building, the students will actually be coming to the school and doing thermal imaging of the facility and the old building, the new. So this is going to be a key piece of their sustainability curriculum, and that was by design. They would have done that without the grant, so because they believe in it, and that's the key. You know, we work with 90 school districts across the state, and this is one of the few that really has that kind of sustainability vision.
So again, we have 7 minutes left. If you do have a question, the Q&A function is down there at the bottom, so feel free to put in a question there. I am curious just about your experience with your rating systems, and all three of you used a different rating system. All three of you did speak to a little bit about why you selected the type of rating system that you selected. I guess I'd just be kind of curious if you've had experience in buildings using a different rating system, and kind of like maybe what was the one challenge that you experienced with the rating system that you learned from in your project.
I can take this. This is Troy Kerr. I work with Ron at FGMA. So this was our first experience working with a rating system in general for net zero energy. We've done LEED buildings and things like that in the past, but as far as net zero goes, this was a first. And I think it was a tremendous learning opportunity for us and for the team at FIAS, because as Ron touched on during his presentation, our project was sort of unlike anything that they had ever done before, just as their rating system was kind of unlike anything we had ever done before. So I think the challenges that we faced were really opportunities, and that moving forward, we'll be better positioned to do this again, because it won't be the first time that we've done it. And I think, if we ever had the chance to work with one of the other rating systems, we'd welcome that too, just to see how they differ.
It strikes me that occupant behavior is really important in performance. Could you speak to how you as an architect, or Chris in your role, what can you do to influence occupant behavior? How do you go about doing that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a lot of thought that went into creating some incredible collaboration spaces. Obviously, the monument stairs that we have in our facility are the preferred, path, rather than taking an elevator, things of that sort. I think the experience that we've sort of come to appreciate about our radiant system is that our facility is completely quiet. There's no air movement in the entire facility. It feels like a library almost. And I think it's just delivered you know, a quality of experience that even we were stunned by, and the university certainly taking note, and that's also helpful as we map forward and as they pursue other projects. I think they're going to be much more inclined to replicate the success that we've encountered.
So it looks like we're going to need to wrap up here in a couple of minutes. I'm just getting a note that we need to head back to the main room. I did want to ask one last question. Ron, your project on it's a retrofit. I think that's really exciting. Is there something particularly challenging that you'd want to highlight that it is a retrofit project? I often get in my work with our members, just when you talk about net zero, that's a place where it just seems unrealistic. And here you've been able to make it happen.
Yeah, you know, we really made, you know, lemonade out of lemons. I mean, like I said, we've been tracking this for a while, and the district looked at new facilities, but you know, at the end of the day, we all know that being able to salvage a facility is far better than new construction and demolition and landfill and everything else. So, you know, that's kind of how we went into it. And I'll tell you what, the real challenge from a school standpoint was trying to superimpose modern curriculum and instruction requirements on this older facility. That was a real challenge. And it was, and the district had to accept that. And so we did certain things in there to make it more flexible and things like that. I don't know that it was really the building itself. It was really programmatic and trying to make sure that this building really supported what they needed to do for the next 30 to 40 years.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, Jennifer, Ron, and Chris, for sharing your case study. As I said before, we need to figure out how to scale all the work that you're doing, and we need to figure out how to scale it dramatically. So I think sharing your case studies is really important, and looking forward to learning about performance from those buildings in the future. So thank you again. And for everyone else, just head on back to the general session. There's a link there in the chat to be able to connect there. And thank you again.
Thank you.